Are representatives of the British government now meeting with Hamas in secret, do you think?
I have no idea, and I've not heard. I just hope that they are. I hope that they are. There's no evidence that they are at the moment, because the messages that we have had consistently, it's not just me, it's politicians of all parties have met the Hamas leaders. It's not just me. We get a very, very different message from Hamas consistently than the one that is put out with the propaganda.
What were your meetings like with Ismail Haniyeh and with Khaled Mashal?
Khaled Mashal and Ismail Haniyeh have a consistent line. They have been asked to give up violence. They have. They do. If you remember, before Operation Cast Lead, they had given up firing rockets. Violence had been given up for 6 months, until the Israelis came over the border and killed a few people, when some hotheads then fired rockets back into Israel. They have done it since Operation Cast Lead. There have been very few rockets fired into Israel. But Israel, you know, is still coming over with the helicopter gunships. They killed 6 people a couple of weeks ago. And they are doing the sonic boom thing that so terrorises the children. That's happening again. So they say, we have given up violence, and where has it got us? They have also proposed that they will have a long-term truce for 10 years, but they do put a time limit on it, because people who are oppressed and occupied actually want to see some results for their truce. They have no means of resistance, so they've got to see some results.
What do you have to say to people who regularly read in the British and American press that the Hamas leadership wants to wipe Israel off the map and drive the Jewish nation into the sea? That must be a message that you've heard from them.
Yes, of course. And we have actually put that to them. And they say, Israel exists. It's on the map. What is this nonsense about, you know, we want to drive them into the sea, or they shouldn't exist? It's there, it's a fact, it's been there for 60 years, we know that, we're not stupid. What we want is a Palestine based on the 67 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. They are quite unequivocal about that, but that is the basis for talks, plus they will give up violence, plus they will adhere to those agreements that Fatah may have made with outside bodies while they have been running the show over the last 2 years, but they reserve the right to actually change them if possible. Hamas have many, many faults, but the messages that go out officially about Hamas are not the messages we are being told by Khaled Mashal and Ismail Haniyeh.
What do you think of the Foreign Secretary David Miliband's attempt to overturn Britain's international treaty obligations with regard to war criminals visiting the United Kingdom?
I think he's a fool. I honestly think he's a fool. And I think one of the sadnesses of British politics is that you suddenly have a young man who, I'm sure he's a very nice young man, who really previously has not been in foreign affairs. He certainly hasn't done any international development, and I think that all foreign ministers should actually see how the 2/3 of the world live before they start dealing with that third of the world that lives in affluence, and that's called foreign policy. He hasn't got the experience, so he comes at it with a perspective of, you know, we must be balanced and we must be conciliatory and there is a way through this. I don't think that he has enough experience to do the job. I think there are people in the Foreign Office probably who've got far more experience, but they're not being listened to. But there are people talking to Hamas of all 3 parties, and we have, I mean, we have been, I'm not saying official
individual
ministers.
MPs and not
individual
representatives of the British government yet?
MPs and peers, certainly members of the Labour Party, one member of the Conservative Party, and several Liberal Democrats have now talked to the Hamas leaders. And what we are trying to secure at the moment, but it's proving quite difficult, but we have got a date fixed in February, is to talk to one of the ministers in the Foreign Office, Ivan Lewis, who is the minister at the moment, he has promised that he will have a meeting with those people who have met Hamas. So it's a great leap forward, but it's a little step.
Do you see a time in the near future when Hamas is accepted as a political party, a legitimate political party, in the way that the IRA Sinn Féin is now regarded as a legitimate party?
Well, you know, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. When I was a little girl, we were terrorised by the Mau Mau in Kenya, led by a man called Jomo Kenyatta. And we used to hear of the terrible things that the Mau Mau did to people and the terrorist activities in Kenya. I think the royal family sent a representative to Jomo Kenyatta's funeral, and he was a very good leader of his country for many, many years. So I don't have any truck at all with this label of terrorist, because the way people behave under oppression, under occupation, can be very, very different from the way they behave when they're given responsibility for government. And at the moment, the Palestinians are not being given the chance.
Tonge, thank you very much. You've been watching Face to Face with me, Lauren Booth. My guest has been Baroness Jenny Tonge. We'll be back at the same time next week with more high-profile political debate. See you then.